parent groove. So what does the parent groove look like? I've got the fitness groove, right? Because you won't stay fit as you get older. If you're young, you don't have to do anything. But if you're older, you just got to sort of start working on the fitness groove. And as you get further along, you want to line up with a contribution groove. So all of your life is really about like playing a record where you get to set the tune that you're dancing and singing to, and what adjustments do you have to make to get in harmony with the frequency that gets you what you want in life. And so how do you do that? How do you align yourself with the winning groove, the groove of money, the groove of family, the groove of fitness? And so that's really kind of been my life's journey. And from when I met Ben and I hung out with Ben and Steven, and they were contributing and pouring into me as a young rookie kid, and, didn't know what I was doing, and Mike Brody and Dick Dillingham and just different people, Mo Anderson and Gary Keller, just pouring into me, and then adopting the pieces I needed, and then evolving those pieces as time goes by. And for me, those grooves have kind of boiled down into 8 grooves. And one is the career, the money groove, right? And if you don't get the career money groove right, it can really interfere with all the other grooves, meaning that it's really hard to be a good parent if you can't pay your bills or can't pay your rent, right? It's really hard to go to the gym if you can't pay your bills. So the money groove, I'm not saying it's the most important, but it's one that you got to get right. Now, it could be as simple as, serving coffee. I just bought a coffee from a nice girl, and her groove is serving coffee. And the limitation of that is you have to live your lifestyle under the umbrella of whatever that groove is. But if you're a real estate person, there is no cap to that groove, right? So that's developing the skills, modeling yourself after a Ben Kinney, or, the highest producing person you can find. The problem with that is and Gary always says starts with the end in mind, but if you model yourself after Ben Kinney, you might blow your mind. It might be too much. So then you hang out with different people at different stages that are like acceptable targets. So that's the money groove. And so then, okay, you say, what do I have to do? You break it down. What do I have to do to be a great real estate agent? Well, it starts off with the prospecting, then it becomes building a team, and then it becomes leadership, and leadership leads to hiring and hiring better people. And early on in your career, you think it's all about how many hours you work, but later on you realize it's almost nothing to do with how many hours you've got to work, but it's not the hours, it's the effectiveness of your hours, the leverage of your hours. And that's where the dollar productive activity comes in. And then you begin to realize that, you've got to work out, right? Because your energy matters. When you're young, you just have this energy, but as you get older, you got to really pay attention to your energy. And when you're in good shape, you have more energy than when you're not in good shape. So then you add in, some fitness to it. And then you realize if you don't, what I learned early on, because early on, I just worked my tail off. I worked as hard as I could all the time, just had as many appointments as I could. And I remember one year I kind of had like a mini nervous breakdown. I realize now it was an identity crisis, but back then I used to call it like a mini nervous breakdown. I'd been working for, I don't know, about 6 years as hard as I could and just trying to outcompete the hours. And I started getting shingles on my, a rash on my chest, and it was shingles from stress, and it was super painful. And I went to see a doctor, and he's like, he goes, you got shingles, it's a recurrence of chicken pox, and it comes from stress. He says, normally we see it in people 50 years old. You're 30 years old. I have no idea why you have straight shingles. And that's when I realized if I push the inner spirit, I like to call it my dog, but let's say I push my inner spirit too hard, my horse, and I don't give it any refreshment or breaks or fun things, your body starts kind of breaking, right? And so then I learned to replenish myself. And Mark Willis was my coach back then. He's like, you need to put 4 vacations in your calendar every beginning of every year, like 4 killer vacations. Like, I don't have to cost a lot of money. Could be going to visit the Grand Canyon. If that's your thing, it could be blowing off steam in Vegas. It could be like going to the beach and hanging out by the beach. But every quarter, if you're not telling the dog inside that, you're not going to give it some fun and refreshment, it's going to quit wanting to work so hard for you. So, that there's a saying in Texas that one day you go hunting with your dog and the dog just lays on the floor and looks at you, and they say that dog won't hunt. And what I took from that was I gotta have that. So I added the bucket list adventures. That's kind of why I went to Burning Man. The other thing I learned about bucket list adventures, and what I've kind of stepped it up over time to put myself in totally unfamiliar situations, is because we get into these grooves where we're kind of locked in on a certain pattern and a certain behavior. And all of us know this, right? You take your kid to the school the same way. You try to follow a morning routine. You have dinner with your wife. You have the same routines on the weekend. Like, we fall into these grooves. A good way to break that groove or to see something from a different perspective is to go to Burning Man. Or like I took, a kayak down the fjords of Norway with 14 guys for 5 days. We're camping on the side of fjords. When you throw yourself in what I call a bucket list adventure, something unfamiliar to you, it gives you a chance to reset and look at the world a different way, and bring that freshness back into your life, that fresh perspective. So that's, one of the other areas. So there's the career groove, there's the fitness groove, now I've added the bucket list adventure groove. And then I noticed there's an environment groove, like, who you hang out with really matters. I'm going to give you 8 grooves, by the way, 8 gardens, if you will. So the environment, what is your, Brad said something nice about my hair. Well, there's the hair groove, right? What do you look like to yourself? When you look in the mirror, do you like what you see? Do you get energy from the person that you're going to go put out in the world? There's your house. Do you like your house? Like, do you like the way you keep it? Do you like your car? Do you keep it clean? Like, is there things that give you energy? That's the environment. And the most important piece of the environment is who you hang out with, right? So you hang out with people that can pour into you and drag you forward. I mean, I was a dorky Dungeons and Dragons guy, which is probably why when that girl hit on Ben at that bar and he politely refuted her, I was so impressed that a guy could just have a girl come up to him, because that had never happened to me in my entire life. But I put myself around people that I didn't work out. I was a Dungeons and Dragons player, but now I hang out with people that work out all the time. So now working out has become second nature to me. Like, it's something I just do. It's become a groove for me, but I had to create that groove. A lot of times athletes have an advantage from that because they had that all through high school and college, and that's just a groove they already have. Right. And prospecting as a group, almost no one has. Like, kids are really good at prospecting, but they don't know that they're prospecting. Like, right. Hey, Dad, can I have more screen time? No. Can I have more screen time? No. Can I have more? Okay, shut up. You can have 5 more minutes. Just stop asking me the same question. Right. Kids are amazing prospectors. And then we forget all that. We kind of get compartmentalized and boxed by life. You have to find it again. So there's the fitness groove, and then there's the environment groove. And I think the bucket list adventure grooves gives you the opportunity to change those things. Then, of course, there's the family and connection and relationship groove. And this one is, time with your kids, time with your wife. And that one takes a lot of work too. Like, my wife and I had a fight the other day, and she said, how can we have been together for 21 years and still be at such a beginning state? But the truth is, we're not at a beginning state. We're just having a fight. And that was a hot fight. So at that moment, we felt bad. But the truth is, and we talked later, and she's like, you're right. We're way ahead. We have more skills, more tools. But you know what? It's not over. We still have to work with a relationship coach. We still have to try to figure out how to love one another better, how to be there for one another better. We're listening to the books. We're working on that relationship groove. And I'm working on the dad groove. How do I be a better dad? And so that's that kind of the relationship groove. And then I find, for me, there's a spirituality groove. Like, how do I pray? How do I meditate? How do I give back to the world? And that's one that has evolved over time. And then, so then how do I affect those grooves? Well, one thing I've found is, and I'm probably the most obsessed goal setter you'll ever find. So there's my goals. I know you can't see what the words say, but you can see all the colors. And I purposefully create this goal setting journal that I carry and I look at religiously. I create it colorful. I want it to be like a kid with a crayon, creating something that inspires me. I've got to keep myself interested in what I'm up to. And you'll see on here right at the top, I have the relationship goals, 2 epic family vacations a year. So we've already done both. I took my family to UK, and then I just did Burning Man with my wife. Spiritual contribution, give away this money, meditate or pray 200 times out of the year, 200 days. One that I love that I added is 12 random acts of kindness, one of them big. This is like, so as you evolve and you're checking out what really inspires me. So with your grooves, what you're trying to do is come up with new good habits, but not force yourself into something you don't want to do. Like, if I tried to play basketball, it would never catch. I'm a terrible basketball player. I never played it. A lot of my friends play. I don't like it. I'm not good at it. I'm slow and little, and it's just not a good match for me, right? So your grooves can't be just like something out of the air. They got to be something you harmonize. What I noticed is I love doing random acts of kindness. That could be as simple as paying for the next 2 or 3 people's coffee, to overhearing some people crying in the airport and not able to get home and buying them a first-class ticket to get them home. Like, just random acts of kindness that are personal and meaningful for me. I've written the checks to the big organizations, to the Charity Water and the people, and that's also inspiring. But the close touch is something that I added to spiritual contribution. So you're trying to find something that harmonizes with you. The workouts, like for me, is on here as well. And then That's the workouts. And there's intellectual educational. So that's one I didn't mention. So the groove of continually improving, right? And I was a terrible student. I got thrown out of 3 high schools. I was usually a C student, except for when I occasionally applied myself. But once I got out of college and I got into business and I became an entrepreneur, I became an avid student of life. My problem with school was a couple things. One is I went to 10 schools in 14 years. So I was trying to keep up with my own self. The second one was my dad was a Green Beret colonel. So I was probably a little bit, I was afraid of him and no other person. Maybe I didn't like hypocrites. There was a lot of things that I had to work out in my being. But then I got into entrepreneurialism and business and sales, and you learn that every single thing you learn is immediately applicable to life. And the minute you apply something that works, you make more money. It works immediately. Like this workout I'm doing with my wife. Why did I start doing it? It's a hack. They hooked me up to electrodes. I noticed my wife's starting to get really cut. She looks really good. She's 48. I'm 55. I promise I'd never say her age. Forget I said that. Okay. Don't tell her I said her age, but she's getting really cut because she's doing this workout. Finally, I went for the first time. I've been about 6 times now, and I hurt for days. I'm like, wow, there's something about those electrodes that take a regular workout and just juice it up. So that would be, learning, an example of learning something and then applying it and trying to add that groove in. As I said, lifestyle adventure, which is a way I use lifestyle adventure to change my brain. Your brain gets really set. They say kids have elastic intelligence, meaning they pick stuff up really quickly. They learn new languages. Their brain really can shape and create new kind of pathways. As we get older, our brains get crystallized, and it's crystallized intelligence, meaning you know what you know and you're really good at sharing it, like a wise man or woman, sharing the wisdom of what you've experienced. But it's harder to make those new connections. But one thing I think that helps with new connections is throwing yourself in a completely unfamiliar situation. It kind of softens your rigidity. It softens your, grooves, if you will, your deep grooves. It gives you an opportunity to look at your life and say, what's working? What would I like to change? We talked about the environment tribe groove, like really who you hang out matters. We created this group called GoBundance. It's a high net worth group. We've now got 800 members, and everyone in it feeds off one another, just like we feed off one another in the masterminds. I was in a Fred Gross mastermind years ago, and I hung out with the McKissicks and the Harkers and all these, Pat Hyben, who I became friends with for life, and all these super high top producers. And I remember thinking at first, man, these guys are amazing. They just grind it out, and they work and they work and they work, and they're so intense. And then I noticed I picked up that ability. Like I was around them, and I never quite got to the 16 hours a day Pat was working, but I got to 10, 12, 14 hours a day. And then I hung out with businessmen and entrepreneurs in Tiger 21 and different masterminds. And I learned, it's really not how hard you work. It's how smart you work. You can get more done in 4 hours if you use them highly effectively than you can in 16 hours if you're just kind of wandering through. So that would be the environment tribe piece, which I think is the most important, because you just pick up from people through osmosis, which is why I've spent my life reaching out. Like I'm having a dinner party in October that I've worked for months to put together, and everyone in that dinner party is a 9-figure person. I got a 9-figure net worth. So there's 5 couples, and I'm inviting Joe Lonsdale, like these guys that are in Austin that are really big hitters. We're having a sushi chef come in and cook for us. And you're probably, there's a train back there. You're probably hearing me say that thinking, I couldn't do that. But I didn't start that way. I start off like having dinner, with and I'm still getting nervous inviting them, by the way. I get nervous like, who am I to invite, this guy, Joe Lonsdale, who's a billionaire, or was, I don't know what's going on with Palantir, to come to dinner with me. But I felt the same way when I was just an agent. I was trying to get my, the HR director of AMD to come to dinner with me. I always felt that same nervousness, right? It's that same thing. But I've used my goals to create an environment where I bring people in me that are around me that are living life at a higher level, so I can get more comfortable with it, if that makes any sense. Like there's no script or book on how to become, live a very high living life. You got to kind of figure it out, especially if you're me, the son of a soldier and a mom that didn't go to college. It's like we're just trying to figure it out as we go. And the best way is through osmosis. If you want to be a great agent, hang out with great agents. If you want to be a great business owner, hang out with great business owner. If you want to be a great team leader, I think that's actually the most important. And then there's the financial skills. And then the other side of this is the businesses that I own, and kind of like, what are the key things that have to happen in these businesses for us to hit our marks of success. So yeah, that's kind of like, and I don't know where I'm at on time, but my whole thing has been changing my groove. And, that's what I work on continuously, is what's the best groove I can get into, the best repeating pattern I can get into that will change my life in the direction I want it to go. A few years ago, I added habit trackers, which is tracking things on a daily basis. That's all from Atomic Habits. So when I read Atomic Habits, I was like, hallelujah, this taught me something. And so now I've taken about 18 of my goals and I track them on a daily basis, because I find if I don't, I get lazy, I get sloppy, so that would be prospecting. Days I don't drink alcohol, days I eat no sugar and stuff like that. I'm really trying to define it and refine it. And I'm in a pretty good place now of using my own innate desire to get better and then creating habits around that innate desire and kind of tweaking little things to improve my overall life. And for a while I put weird things on the habit tracker, like hang out with mom. But because, my mom's getting old, she's 87, tells me the same stories over and over. You guys might have this experience. But then I after a few years of doing that, I was like, I just love my mom. I'm just going to call her every day and quit putting it on my goals. But there's a lot of movement in it. So Ben, that's kind of my offering today, is just like, how do you change your grooves and what's the most effective grooves for you to be successful in whatever moment of life and place in life you are right now. So that's kind of my offering.
Dave, I appreciate you, and I think you should put Ben Baker on your list, right? So that we can hang out, we can catch dinner next free moment you've got.
I would love that, Ben.
I think when you say step into your groove, I had to do that even in inviting friends that I really respect. I see Brad Korn. Brad has honored me on this. You've honored me. I look at Emmerich Peace, who I respect, and Kimber. I've got so many people who initially in my head I would think are untouchable. Who am I to ask these huge influencers onto this group, what I call the show, and so I encourage everyone here to step outside, right? Your groove, do something to shake things up, like you and your workout and going to Burning Man. My brother-in-law he's a hippie out of Washington State. He lives at Burning Man, right? Now again, that's his thing. I've never done it, but you know what? I should probably add it to my list. So anyway, Dave, last question. I was so intrigued by all the companies that you have.
Right.
I'm aware of a few of them. Are they all real estate related, or some of them are completely out of the box? Give me your most unique one or two, because I think the lesson here is that, sometimes we need to step outside of the familiarity, right? I know real estate, and I think I know real estate well, but there is a couple of things that I'd really like to pursue that I either haven't had the courage or the opportunity to do. So speak on that briefly for me.
Yeah, and remember, it's all about transforming ourselves, which is why a book like The Miracle Morning, is such an important book. Millionaires is the one I wrote with Hal, Miracle Morning Millionaires. But what I would say is, like, you got to change your groove, and you've also got to be willing to be more. You've got to let it soak into you that you can expand. You got to accept that you can expand, which we all know we can as kids. But as we get older, like you said, we get this thing like, who am I to reach out to that guy? Like, I had that. Like, for two of the guys I invited to this party, I'm like, I barely know those guys. Why would they say yes? And then I'm like, you know what? Screw it. I'm going to do it anyway. And there's a process to that. But Ben, once I learned how to like build a business and then set a framework for it and then have someone run it, that's the key. Like, the only way you can release from a business is if someone runs it better than you, or at least as good as you. Like, fortunately, I'm low talent, so it was quite easy for me to find people to run stuff better than me. But my ambition was high, my talent was lower, and Gary was a great teacher. So as you know, with the market centers, with Tommy Flood and Teresa doing such a great job and Smokey running the region, I was able to expand. And then over time, I kind of added a few other businesses. One of them would be my intellectual property business, which is the books that I've written, which I've written 4 now, and I'm working on the 5th. Champions, which is the entrepreneurial mastermind, just took off. We didn't even create that really to make money, but it's taken off, and it's a very large business run by a guy, Chris Ryan, for us. There's my private equity fund, which is called Waterloo and Associates, which is the old name for Austin, Waterloo Associates. And that invests in single family rentals. and Fubakazi, which is a technology company. In fact, the other day, you might have seen on the front page of the Dallas Morning News an article about foreclosures. And it was put out by Foreclosure Listing Service. I own 50% of that company with another guy. So that's the old Roddy Report, which we bought about 6 years ago. So that was kind of neat. Aaron runs that. So my whole thing is I wanted 5 guys that reported to me that made over $1 million a year. Once I got it, once I really understand what Gary was trying to teach, and, you know, I find them, and it's a covenant relationship between me and those guys. I try to pour into them. They pour into me. It's not easy. Like Smokey's a tough dude. Like, he's not an easy guy to deal with necessarily. John Davis was my employee for 10 years, so hiring people that will build your business doesn't mean it's like, I'm going to tell you, go pick up my laundry. It doesn't work like that. They're usually telling me to go pick up their laundry, but I'm happen to be the guy that owns the business. And then there's, the Keller Williams things, the market centers and the regions and stuff like that. And then there's the family office, which is just where Matt King, who's an incredible dude who works for me, kind of keeps all the pieces together.
I'm even more impressed, my brother. But again, what impresses me more is just to be able to call you a buddy and a friend. And I appreciate you honoring me again today. And thanks for everyone who participated in this. I apologize being a few minutes. Again, technology is crazy. And it's, you know what, our words have power. So you know what, technology is my friend. There it is.
There you go. Reprogram, man.
Right?
Yeah, beautiful.
So guys, I appreciate it. Dave, my slogan is every week I bring the meat. I bring the meat every week, and you've delivered meat, filet mignon to us today. So I appreciate you. Again, I look forward to seeing you soon. And I'll tell you guys, next week, there won't be any technology problems. Hopefully, I will deliver again, just an amazing human being and an agent from California. That's the only clue I'm going to give you. So when I tell you, you do not want to miss next week. Don't miss next week. Dave, feel free to chime in and put me on your schedule. Let me know when you're in the Dallas area or even in the Austin area. I'll come see you and Trace, and I look forward to visiting again soon.
Love to, Ben. Big fan of yours. Love you, brother. Thank you so much for having me. It's been an honor.
Appreciate you guys. See you guys next week.